Hi there. Hope you're doing well. Welcome to this week's edition of the Gospel Project Recap. This week we are continuing our month-long series, really, about some of the healing ministries and moments in Jesus' ministry where he goes about healing people in the communities where he's ministering. And today we're doing this we get kind of a twofer. It's this interesting story where Jesus is going to not only heal a woman, but he's also going to raise a girl from the dead. And so you can find this story in Mark chapter 5 is where we're at today. But it's this story where Jesus is teaching, and this ruler of the synagogue named Jairus comes. And Jairus has a sick daughter. And so he kind of is imploring Jesus, like, hey, Jesus, please come and heal my little girl. And we're not sure what the sickness was or anything like that, but he's like, hey, please come heal my little girl. And she's like, I'm going to come. And so they kind of make their way out, and they're heading towards Jairus' house. And the crowds are pressing in, and it's just trying to weave a bunch of people through a crowd of people. And at some point in the middle of this movement towards Jairus' house, Jesus stops. And he turns and stops. It's like, hey, I just felt like power come out of me. Which is like an interesting thing for Jesus to say, I think. And the stop is like we can't stop, like what's going on, like why are we stopping? And he's like, I felt power go out from me, like I healed someone, is essentially kind of what he's saying. And he's kind of looking around, and his eyes kind of land on this woman in the crowd, who the Bible then kind of gives us a description of her. And she has suffered from a bleeding condition for about 12 years, and she's used all of her money on doctors and medicines and all these things, and nobody could make her well. But she hears about Jesus, she hears about his healing ministry, his ability to heal, and she hears that he is in her town. And so her thought process is, if I could just get to him, if I could just touch like the edge of his robe, I would be healed. Like, this is the level of her faith in Jesus, is like, if I could just touch his clothes, I will be healed. So she makes her way through the same crowd, finds Jesus, touches his robe, believing that like his power is so great that she will be healed in that. And she is. And so she kind of sheepishly comes forward to Jesus and is like, hey, this is who I am, this is why I did this. And Jesus' response to her is like, hey, your faith has made you well. Like, your faith in me, your trust in me is what healed you in this moment. And then very quickly we're rushed back into the first part of the story, which is Jairus and his daughter. And then one of Jairus' servants comes up and says, like, hey, don't trouble Jesus anymore. Your daughter has died. And Jesus kind of turns and is like, hey, like, have faith. We're still going to go. And so they get to Jairus' house, and there's mourners there, and they're weeping for this little girl who has passed away. And Jesus kind of turns to him and is like, why are you crying? Like, she's not dead, she's asleep. And then they proceed to laugh at Jesus. No, she's dead. And so Jesus goes into this room where they've kind of got this little girl's body after she's passed away. And he only lets like a select number of people, including the girl's parents, come into the room with him. And he kind of leans over her and speaks some words for her. And essentially says, like, little girl, I tell you, arise. And in the Jesus Storybook Bible that we read with our kids, when it does this story, it has this beautiful line where it says, and Jesus reached down into death and brought the little girl back to life. And so Jesus speaks these words, this little girl who has passed away, and she wakes up. And his instructions are to go and get this little girl some food. And it's this incredible moment of Jesus, like, overcoming, in the story, overcoming two illnesses that were thought to be insurmountable. Both this bleeding issue that this woman had spent 12 years with and no one seemed to be able to heal, and then also death. And so just this is a great compounded story of just the power of not only Jesus' healing ministry, but people having faith in Jesus, that Jesus could heal. Because even after getting the news that his little girl had died, Jairus from the beginning had faith that Jesus was the only one who could heal his little girl. And even after hearing that she's died, when Jesus says, no, we're still going to go, Jairus' faith is still there to say, like, this Jesus can do something. And so that was the story this week. And so what we're going to focus on with your younger kids is just, again, with these healing miracles, we're just kind of keeping the big idea simple, and just like, Jesus healed this woman and Jesus raised this little girl from the dead. Like, Jesus is powerful enough to do these things. With our students, we were going to go with the idea that What Jesus is after is us to have faith in his ability to not only heal physically, but to also heal spiritually. Like this is a lot of the healing ministries exist to say, like, if I can heal these physical ailments of people, if I could bring this little girl back from the dead, don't you think you can trust me that I can heal the illness that truly matters in your life, which is your sin issue? So that was what we were going to focus on this week with your kids. And then as far as discussion questions goes this week, I only had one for you, which just is what can we learn from the faith of both this woman and the faith of Jairus in these situations where they're desiring healing? How can we apply that to how we interact with God when we're encountering the troubles and the illnesses and the things like that we're going to experience in our lives? Especially given a global pandemic, it may be a good time to have some of these kinds of conversations of like, how does God heal? Can God heal? Is God bigger than this? Have some of those conversations with your family this week. Again, we're super excited that we're back together this week in person for worship. I hope you're going to be able to join us this morning. If not, the live stream will be available to you. As always, there's additional resources for this lesson. You can find them on our website. They should also be emailed to you at some point in the upcoming week. Very excited to get to worship with you in person. But until I see you again, either in person or in these videos, God bless.